Hey everybody, it's Matt Williams. Welcome to today's episode of the Drone Business Show. Very special guest this time from all the way across the pond, if you're listening in the UK, as many of our followers are at the moment. We've got Jason Sansusi joining us from doyouknowdrones.com. Jason, it's great to have you on board. I know we had a conversation, crikey, actually a few months ago now, which is wild, isn't it? You know, when we connected on social media through a couple of joint ventures past, if you like. And yeah, fantastic to have you on, mate. Thank you for coming. I can't wait to hear about your journey and to share, actually, to be honest, how you as well as I are looking to help people and help people out. So yeah, it's live. Listen to this. If people are listening to this live as well, you guys have just gone through, just had Thanksgiving, right? So how was all of that? Good time with the family?
We did. Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for welcoming me to the show, Matt. Just really, really great to connect with you. Yeah, we just had Thanksgiving. I'm in the midst of a family move. We're moving multi-generations into a house. So like things are just busy. And people that follow me on social media, primarily LinkedIn, because who's got time for all the rest?
Yep.
Do a lot of things. But the primary mission that I kind of like work under is I want to see the entire drone industry elevated, right? I want to like set a baseline standard of what I believe and others seem to also believe should be sort of common knowledge versus like kind of what you're doing, right? You want to make sure that people like understand the business part of it. There's a lot of people that just want to go fly.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that want to like make money. Those two, they aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. So it's like our mission is to just mentor, coach, use our crazy experiences that we've had sort of coming up through this industry to help others that are getting in or want to scale up. But it's not just the individuals. I also focus on the enterprises. So the companies that want to, like, for example, like a couple of, very recent customers they have really great ideas and they want to sort of move them out into the wild, right? They have these really great ideas, but they need to understand more of the regulatory space, understand more of the need, understanding what those outcomes and ROIs can be. So all of that's related to the business, but I do it from a technological that word expertise is terrible. Just from a mindset, a perspective of having the experience I have in the industry, which I'll talk about in a second, and what I believe is sort of happening in the industry right now worldwide.
Yeah. I think it's one of those, right? It's a really interesting time for the drone industry as a whole. This is why, I mean, I personally have been teaching the business side of things, the personal development side of things since 2015 formally, when we started doing courses and I started coaching people and helping people, and many of those people now, and we've had some of them on the show already, have gone on to be very successful in the industry because they have used that kind of mindset shift from and most people do come into it. It's a hobby. We want to fly drones. We want to get out and fly. But there is that little tiny tweak. And as you say, you can do that. But there's that tiny tweak that you've got to make at some point, I think, to be able to go from flying around for a hobby and making a bit of kind of pocket money, beer money, whatever it might be. Maybe you could pay for a holiday, which is amazing, right? But actually, if you want to go to that next level and go full time, there is a definite mindset shift that does have to happen. And it feels as though the industry is in that place now where I think we've burnt through a lot of the early adopters who came in thinking they were going to be, floating around on yachts in Monaco, sipping champagne and from flying a drone. And maybe some people achieved that. But I think we've burnt through the majority of those people now. We're getting into a place where it's becoming more professionalized. And because of that, hopefully people like myself and you helping the industry to mature and almost forcing that professionalization in a way upon people, whether they want it or not, sometimes stuffing their ears full of droney goodness on LinkedIn and, as both of us do, which is how we bumped into each other, is really important. So, yeah. So, mate, if you wouldn't mind then, just walk us through how you've got to the place where you are now from the start to where you are in terms of wanting to help people advance and develop.
Absolutely. Wow. So I'll give the listeners, I'll spare them the full story, but I'll kind of break it down, the Cliff Note version. And
Perfect.
so I'm a remote sensing and GIS scientist. I have been for over 20 years. So my background is in analytics, not just data capture. It's in understanding what the Earth is doing and how to convert that information gathered remotely, whether that's a satellite, a crewed aircraft, a drone, a submersible, some sort of robotic, a unattended ground sensor, a handheld, whatever it happens to be, that data capture device, and convert that into actionable information, right? Or actionable intelligence. I mean, you can say that. I say it a little bit funnily because it is a little bit of an air quote esque
Yeah.
thing. Because like, what the hell does that mean? Like,
But that's what it's all about,
what
though.
is
It's not, yeah,
actionable
it's
intelligence?
actionable data. Yeah, I love it.
I love it because I see it everywhere. And I'm like, do you actually know what that is? Because a lot of people think if I deliver an orthomosaic, that is actionable intelligence. You're like, no,
Yeah,
that
not
is
not quite.
more data. That is not even yet information, definitely not intelligence. So, and definitely not an insight, right? So it's like there's a lot of people out there who are like, man, I just got to deliver the best point cloud or DSM or da 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 da. But I digress. So my background in remote sensing and GIS sort of really formulates how I think about this industry. So about 15 years ago now, I started with a small little company that no longer exists called Precision Hawk, and I was their VP of geospatial applications. Worked with them for 5.5, almost 6 years, and went through the whole VC goodness, right? I kind of felt like some of the parties we probably could have been on a yacht in Monaco.
Yep.
However, those things don't last. And the reason that this one didn't, being a pioneer, and that was like the thing all around Precision Hawk, is being a pioneer. And like, not like well, maybe a little bit of the, get arrows shot into you, by all the people that didn't really understand what you were trying to do, but really trying to build something that didn't exist, and build an ecosystem that didn't exist, and building an understanding of an industry that didn't exist. So that's hard. And what they did well is go big, right? They went big. What they didn't do as well is think small. And what I mean by that is they didn't really find a niche. They just kind of like, we're a drone mercenary developer company for hire. And like, if you have money, we will develop something for you. And what we discovered over the course of years is that everyone wanted something a little bit different. So we ended up turning into a little bit of a McKinsey, a little bit of a Deloitte, a little bit of like a system developer integrator. That was the wrong mindset. And it
Interesting.
obviously didn't work. Hundreds of millions of dollars in VC capital burned through, bankruptcy, you know, great relationships, because these were people that really I still today trust and know in the industry. And they went on to do, some other amazing things throughout the thing. And that's what's really cool, because this is still a really small industry. So after that, it was more of a take that knowledge and went to a couple small businesses that were really niche down. So I really appreciated that. And I was there for probably another 5 years and really got to understand sort of the pushing the sensor limits of what and actual beyond visual line of sight limits within specific industries here in the United States. That was very eye-opening, very exciting. And that company was Juniper Unmanned.
Okay. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, also went bankrupt.
Yeah.
I'm sensing a theme.
There's a common denominator.
I'm like, let's see, am I the common denominator? No,
Yeah.
that's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So that unique knowledge set, working with a very big VC-backed company and then working with a very small, niche, almost boutique drone service provider that was actually delivering insights, not just data, and also had a very big R&D component. So that I think was really fun. And so you get to see sort of the bleeding edge of what's actually happening and what's going to work and what's probably not going to work in the industry. After that, I went to work as an enterprise drone architect, another thing that I don't even really know what it means. They literally created the
Sounds
role for
cool.
me. I was working at Cognizant. That was a massive company, and got to work on some really cool projects until those projects were over. And then those companies, if you don't know how that works, once those projects are over and there aren't any other projects, well, you're kind of done. Great experience, though. Work with
Yes.
another great set of people. it really understood the enterprise component of it a lot more. And that I think was another perspective or mindset shift that I had that allowed me to be like, okay, this is really what enterprises are looking for in drone technology or robotics technology or IoT. Because I was actually in the IoT division, it wasn't a drone division. That was definitely something that was very helpful. So then, let's just say a little bit before I started Cognizant, COVID happened. There's kind of a couple different types of people when COVID happened. They're like the kind that I'm just gonna like freak out and do nothing and just like, or put my head down and like just, you know, or the people that were like, wow, I got all this time now. I'm at home, no distractions. Let's write a book. Let's start a nonprofit. Let's do crazy stuff. Start a
Yep.
podcast. All of those things happened for me in COVID. And
Nice.
that is not a brag. That is not at all. It was just the way my mind works. So if you've also followed me on LinkedIn, you know that I am autistic. And for me, that is, look, I don't view it as a superpower. It's just another perspective. I think differently than a lot of people. Right. So, and that's a genetic thing. It's not, I didn't catch it. You can't catch it. You can't take acetaminophen. Although I do joke, it's like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm an acetaminophen American.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's funny.
It is
But
funny.
that really, the reason for those things is that time that I've spent in the industry before that, it was about 10 years before that, there was some interesting things that came to light. And that was the fact that there really was no educational standard or experience standard or qualification required to enter this industry. And that was wild. I was like, this is nuts. I remember that we were at the beginning of the industry here in the United States and we had to hire commercial pilots to do the flying with a drone. Now, today that would seem ludicrous. You're like, that's absolutely over the top. Is it?
Yeah.
A
Is
lot of
it?
the
Was it?
conversations that I've been having lately with enterprises. Now, when I say enterprises, I'm talking Verizon, massive utilities, big mining companies. You know who leads them? They're usually aviation safety professionals. Why? Because the only thing you will ever hear, the biggest metric you will ever hear in an enterprise is safety, safety, safety.
Yes.
And that is a mindset shift. And so it's something that this industry really needs to take heed on when you're working with these large enterprises, or you want to work with these large enterprises. Look, if you're listening to this and you want to make $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 on a project, you have to understand the way they work. It is not about, I have hundreds of hours. It is not about, I have this drone. It is not about, I use this software. It is about, can you deliver something of value and keep me out of the news?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
There was a very large, I will keep his name out of this. He's like, look, we will be very successful and we'll have a great relationship if you just do what you have said you were going to do, what you have trained for, what we have trained you for, and you keep me out of the news. Because this was a very very high visibility thing. But if you could do that with finesse and treat it like an aviation professional or treat it like an actual professional and a business person, that's a win. So I started to take, look, what if we upped, because the whole purpose of a drone is to capture data. Well, okay. So what is that data? So I sort of started with, what are the foundations, right? Like, what's the basics of remote sensing, basics of GIS, basics of thermography, basics of LiDAR, basics of blah, blah, surveying techniques, really foundational things that I think everyone in the industry needs to understand. Because I constantly, and this is not a rag on anyone. When I speak to people, I can tell very quickly that they have no idea what they're talking about. And that I don't see, like, look, I don't correct them. I just like, look, I gently push them over to a resource because it's like, look, I want I want the whole industry, honestly, worldwide. I want everyone to understand the basics so you understand what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, why people are selling this and buying it, and why it's a challenge to scale. What are the opportunities? Those are all based in a foundational knowledge set that I think the industry needs, that passing, your certification for EASA or your FAA Part 107, like, they don't teach you. So you have to go deeper. And just a little bit. Really, it's not a huge lift. Like, I'm not talking you need to go get a 4-year degree. Or you need to maybe have another like 20, 30, like maybe 20 hours of additional training that's focused, and then go put it into practice. And then go mess around. Go fail a little bit. Go. I mean, that's the biggest thing. The biggest opportunity is like, get some foundational knowledge from an actual person that knows what the heck they're talking about. Look,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people on YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. Matt's on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube. Yeah.
There are some people that they're on YouTube and they have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of viewers that, if I'm being real honest, don't really know what they're talking about. Not at an enterprise commercial level. Like, they can work very well recreationally and some of the commoditized options that are out there today. And you ask, why are they commoditized? Well, they're commoditized because they're easy. They're easy, right? Hundreds of thousands, nay, millions of drone operators worldwide. The easy stuff is easy for a reason. And that's why those prices are, right? It's a race to the bottom. It's a race to the bottom because it's really not that hard. And it's way less about it being easy or hard than it being simple or complex, right? So the way that I teach my students and my mentors, and I'll get back to, wait, you're a teacher now? Yes, hold
Yeah,
on.
kind of.
Sort of, kind of. Is that the difference between simple and easy? Something can be easy, but complex. So that combination of, this is easy, but it's complex, makes money, right? If
Yes.
it's hard but simple, you're just wasting your time and grinding gears and you're not getting paid for it. So, and this is actually what I see a lot of people doing. They're trying to make the industry really, really hard, but they're not making any money. So they just need to change their mindset. And it's like, I need to figure out a way to make this easy. Like, what was it, Bill Gates that said, I like hiring lazy people because they will figure out the easiest way to get something done. They
Yes.
will be very effective and efficient. And I'm a lazy person. So I want to live here, but it will be complex. And that complexity comes from understanding the foundations and understanding the client's actual needs. That's the other biggest problem in this industry, right? No one's listening. Everyone's
Yeah.
like, here's what we have. Here's what I'm building. Here's who I believe it can serve. Wink, wink. And we're just going to do it and ram it down people's throats. And it's going to be great. I can give you a dozen different examples where it, just in this last 6 months, where that did not work. So don't do that. So I mentioned teacher. So the other thing I did was start a nonprofit, and that nonprofit was called Neurodiversity Works. I actually started that with my wife. It's still just my wife and I 5 years later. And it is Giving Day here in the United States. So
Amazing.
I put out a link in my LinkedIn profile. If you want to give to our efforts here, what we do is we prepare neurodiverse students for careers in this industry. So we've been doing it
Amazing.
for 6
Very
years
cool.
now. We've had 3 summer camps. We've had probably thousands of people go through our program. And it's obviously really satisfying, as a neurodiverse person myself, and we have a neurodiverse family. So it's like, that population really means something to us, and they're highly underemployed or unemployed, honestly. And it's just terrible. Some of the best minds that I know, they're neurodiverse AF. So yeah. Teacher and mentor and coach, but it all supports the same mission, is making the drone industry better.
Yes.
Just a little bit. Even
Yeah.
1% better that's great. If I've made this industry 1% better, I win, man. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, mate. It's a really powerful mission. It's one of the reasons I'm glad I'm so glad that we are connected, because it may seem strange to some people because we're kind of on a similar path, right? We're both looking for similar clients, I guess, in a way where we want to mentor people and help people. And you're like, well, why would you want your competition? Because it's not about competition. It's about helping each other, helping everybody. This whole, for me, the the phrase very much sits: the rising tide raises all boats, and that's where we need to be. And when I started out in the drone industry and started doing the kind of regulatory teaching side of things and doing the certifications for people, I came from a military aviation background, a flight safety background, where I was flying around at low level. My friends, colleagues, acquaintances, all flying around at low level, still are now. And my biggest concern was that interaction between, heaven forbid, a drone and a fast jet or a low flying helicopter. And we've seen elements of that over the years, not thankfully as much as we could have done potentially, but I think a large part of that is because of the educational piece that, to be honest, I made my mission for 10 years, to get out and teach as many people as possible so that we kept it from the here and now as far away from the accident or incident as possible. And that facilitates everybody. And I think now we're moving into another phase of the industry, where the next big kind of train wreck heading down the tracks, if you like, is the fact that so many people have burnt through the cash, and that kind of had to happen. The bad press had to happen. We've had to have a few bigger accidents or incidents that have occurred to try and test the regulatory frameworks and make sure that the reaction has been appropriate. And we've seen recently, again, the whole airports being closed down because of drones and all that sort of stuff. But I think now we're into this place where actually everyone needs to pull together and, like we said at the beginning, look at how do we professionalize this? How do we make it so that people can have genuine careers, not just flying drones, but in and around the drone industry?
Mm-hmm.
The bleeding edge piece isn't done. It never will be. There will always be people pushing that bleeding edge, but those aren't. It becomes now about, as you mentioned, just what do the clients want? What do people want? How are we going to use drone technology to do stuff that makes our lives safer and easier, or quicker, or more cost effective, whatever it might be, rather than let's build a drone and see what we can do with it. And that feels like where we've been for the last 15 years or so. And it's this mindset shift.
So I'll give you another fun example. I gave this example yesterday to one of my mentees, and it's a real reminder of what this industry is actually about. So a very simple example was reached out. There was a water litigation case here in Colorado. Big water, like water use, irrigation, for agriculture and other, consumptive use or non-consumptive use of water. These are all big issues here, right? Because we've got the headwaters of the Colorado, and they're like in the Arkansas, like we like our water goes to Vegas, our water goes to all over the place. So water's a big deal. There was a large rancher that was going through a water litigation that this is what they wanted to know. Set up the boundary conditions here. These were 3 fairly large, shallow reservoirs that were currently empty, right? Because, there's a lot of seasonality to it. They're completely empty. However, they were very vegetated. So the only thing you want to know was I wanted to understand how much water can these reservoirs hold at capacity to the top of the reservoir, and give me that number every, I don't know, maybe 6 inches. So it was what, 7, 8 numbers that they wanted per reservoir. So I'm talking about 24 data points. This is 3 reservoirs, 3 times 8, 24. They want 24 data points. So how do you get there? Well, you work backwards. He wants a CSV. He doesn't want anything else. He wants a CSV with reservoir 1, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. Next one for the other 2 reservoirs. So how do you get there? Well, obviously it's vegetated, so you need LiDAR. Okay.
Yes.
Did I sell them LiDAR? No. That's the tool that I needed. I knew I needed to use because it's vegetated and you had to. Look, these are tools. I bring a toolbox. Here's what I need to understand. I have tools that can do photogrammetry well, tools that can do 360 videos well, tools that can do this type, tools that can do thermography well, tools that do LiDAR, and I'm familiar with all these tools. So I bring my toolbox, right? So that's what you would do. If I want to build a house, I'm going to bring my toolbox. Or get out of here. That's way too elaborate. If I want to build a piece of IKEA furniture,
Yeah. Nice.
They're going to give me the tools, but I'm probably going to bring some of my own tools. So getting back into the story, flew the LiDAR, set out the survey, set up did all of the things that you do, proper workflow to get accurate data. And then you put it into GIS. And there's fun little buttons and tools in there that allow you the analysis that give you the top of reservoir in every 6 inches of how much water can this hold based on the topography that was just scanned, bare earth model. Look, that's complex. That's complex. But easy. Because I had the right tools. I knew how to use the tools. And all this customer wanted was this. Now, that was a $6,000 job, and I delivered a CSV. It was a half a day work. And I got it all done in that same day because I had all the tools to do all the processing, do the analysis. Like I said, once again, not a brag, but this is where the industry's actually going. The industry wins, and this is not common to this is common to all industries. The industry wins when the tools disappear. When that's not what we're talking about anymore.
Yes.
We're talking about what we made with the tools. The tool itself, who cares? And that's why this whole DJI ban and this, and look, there's too much focus on the tool. You need to focus on the pointy end of the value curve here. That's the analytics, the insights, the actionable intelligence. The actionable insight, the intelligence that this client wanted was this 24 data point CSV. That's it. That's what he needed. There was a lot of stuff that went into that. Is that what I sold him? No. He didn't want the LiDAR point cloud. He didn't want the survey points. He didn't want an orthomosaic. 24 point CSV. I'm reiterating that because if you go to enterprises, that's actually what they want. They don't want headaches and gigabytes and terabytes of data that they're just going to have to sift and sort through. They actually don't want that. That's what they're getting sold. They don't want that. They want insights. Now, how do you get there? Well, you get there by someone needs to look at it that's smart, that knows what they're looking at, and pull it out. Or AI assisted or ML assisted, inspections or all these things. There's so many great tools out there. There's no one silver bullet. There probably never will be, and there likely never will be. There will always be human in the loop. Even if AI gets crazy, ridiculous, smart, it'll never be Skynet. And there will always need to be, because look, you can't, another guest that I had on my podcast said, look, what are we going to have AI checking the AI? That's ridiculous. There will always be a human in the loop. And that human has to have a certain amount of understanding and training and standards. This is what we should be focusing on the training, the foundations, the standards. That is really where we need to be focusing, not on, I need to make the number one AI tool set that can crush the utility industry, right? It's cool. No one's done it yet. They're all assisted methods, which are great. And you can go to any industry and it's the same story. So fear not. Jobs are not going away. It's actually creating new opportunities for new jobs, which is extremely exciting. There are jobs that are going to be happening in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, don't even exist today. So fear not, industry. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for everyone. But what it's going to require is an understanding of what are the actual problems, convert those to opportunities, and then actually focusing on those outcomes that you can control in a linear manner by what tools you have, what experience you have, what foundations you have. And look, and I'm not talking experience about a number of flight hours you have. I could care less. That is an interesting metric. That's not a KPI, right? Look, that is not a performance indicator of a good remote pilot, is the number of hours they have. In aviation, pure aviation, that makes sense. If you're just doing data capture, and even then it doesn't necessarily mean.
So
fair. No,
I've
you're right.
with 5,000 hour pilots who were frankly terrible because they'd got 5,000 hours. And but there we go. That's another story for another day. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No, you're good, man. I mean, look, it needs to be a conversation too. So I'll pause there, and I'm hoping there was something in there that can cause a question.
Yeah, big time. So, and it's really interesting because this is exact messaging that I've been pushing to people for years. It's one of the things that I'm pushing hard on the channel at the moment. So, like all of the videos that have come out on the channel, if you're listening to this kind of around when it goes live, hopefully in the future it'll be a lot more diversified. But if you're listening to it now, it's all this foundational stuff about how do we get our messaging correct and our positioning correct so that we can set ourselves up for success in the future. A lot of people, exactly as you said, everyone throughout the industry, big and small, doesn't matter, focuses on we fly these drones, they weigh this much, they go this high, they go this far, we're doing beyond visual line of sight, blah, blah, blah. No one cares. The only people who care are the people who are writing the people who are buying those drones or a pain to get that capability. Like it's only us geeks that care about how long the transmission goes, or whatever it might be, how stable is the command and control link between, and when you go to 7 kilometers. The customer doesn't care. The customer just wants their pipeline to be inspected and make sure that there's no leaks and no one tapping the oil out of it between here and Alberta or whatever it might be. Like, that's literally all they care about. Like, if they never hear from us and they just keep paying the invoice and never hear from us if we're doing pipeline inspection or we're doing power transmission inspections or whatever it might be, surveys, all they want to know is, okay, do I need to send a crew out to go and chop back the vegetation within this distance because it's now got within this distance of these high voltage lines? They don't care how we're doing it or the process we're going through. I mean, there may be part of that as part of the tendering process, and but that isn't what we need to be advertising on our websites. It's not what we need to be telling people that we do. We help solve a problem by doing this, and that is honestly as simple as it needs to be. I think, anyway. That's my opinion on it, and it's worked very well for the people who've embraced it and take that on board. It's yeah, we need to get away from the geeks and the kind of squeaks and all that sort of stuff, and externally anyway, I think.
I mean, so look, there's a lot of different analogies you could throw out here that will explain the incorrect thinking. And I'm not going to go over to I'm a home painter, or I'm a car mechanic, even better. I'm not going to sell the fact that I use brand new Milwaukee branded tool sets with the DeWalt double hyper. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm
I
clearly
love
not.
it.
Right. I don't even know. But like, that is, I don't care. Can you fix my car? Like, can you diagnose what's wrong? And can you fix it?
Can you change the brakes, or can you
That's
get the
all I
engine light to
care.
go away?
That's
Yeah.
it, man. Can you make that little light go away? Like that's all I need. The drone industry needs to be treated the same way. I know it's an oversimplification, but that is actually the right way of thinking. How did they get there? How did these massive franchises that do oil changes and mechanic, the successful ones, how did they get there? They don't advertise their tools. I can tell you that. They do way more. So you need to start focusing. And look, you can do that with almost any single industry, any business out there that's successful. If you model your drone business after that, you will be successful. If you try to follow what everyone else is doing, you're going to get the same results. Like, that's kind of how it's going to work. So if you're seeing people that, and look, it's evolving. And that's the thing, that it's evolving. Back in the day, 10 years ago, you can say, I have a drone business, and people were excited. People were like, woo. They were still
Absolutely.
geeking out over it and be like, wow, what does that mean? Like, they're not that anymore. Now there's still a public perception problem. There's still regulatory lags. There's still, hardware inavailability, and like there's still lack of training. There's all of these challenges that have evolved with the industry, and they will continue to evolve. And the whole point of having these conversations like we're having right now is to put a little benchmark in and be like, look, here's where we are now. Here's what we've seen work and what we've seen fail. And here's what we believe. It's a belief. It's a hypothesis of an educated guess of what we believe the industry will do going forward. Believe us, don't believe us, that's fine. And it's not even about experience. It's about what we've actually seen, what we've actually done that works. And look, what people are doing that is working may not be constant. But the thing that's interesting that I find really interesting is the mindset. Like that entrepreneurial business problem solving, trusted advisor type of mindset, it's working. Like,
Yes.
and it works in almost every single business, right? Like, I'm gonna trust the person that like is gonna teach me something rather than someone that's just gonna do something for me, right? I want that person. I want the person that's gonna teach me something while I'm doing it that I didn't know, like something that will be useful for me in the future. So, an education foundation, so you can actually speak smartly and just not just throw out words, like, is critical.
Yeah. And I think it's an important point as well. And you touched on it earlier. Actually, there are lots of people out there who are offering some kind of education, some kind of mentoring, some kind of advice and guidance, and that's brilliant. But a lot of what we're seeing, or certainly a lot of what I'm seeing, is, as you mentioned before, it's these YouTubers who have built 500,000, 1 million subscriber followings, and because of that, they become an influencer. You know, there's no beating around the bush with that, and people will follow them because that's the point of being a influencer, right? You have your followers. The clue's in the name, but it doesn't mean that those people are the right people to listen to for the whole piece, right? Certainly take on board their opinions and some of their teachings, but take it for what it is. A lot of the time, I think a lot of people are led down in a certain route because they're being paid. You need to look at who they're being sponsored by or who they're being given equipment by and all that sort of stuff. But the big thing is, we're just, I think, reaching, and this is why the timing for me is critical right now of this phase of the industry, because we're just reaching the phase where you can now start to get that information and get that guidance, get that mentor and teaching from people who have been successful and have seen and experienced potentially failure, have seen and experienced success, and now can take those pieces and bridge that gap through to bigger business, other, you know, consultant that works in other industries and has worked for a very long time, and just make that connection now. So we're getting to that stage where those people and our class, myself and you as people within that realm, if I'm being brutally honest, where actually we're starting now to be able to get that message out there and be able to bring that expertise to the industry, and it's a really powerful and important message, right? That you've got to be careful who you listen to, but people are now coming along, I think, who genuinely have that um, experience
So
and
I love the way you put it.
expertise.
Like it's experience over expertise. It's perspective over just time in industry. Like it's those failures. Like I love the way you put that because I think that's really, really important. People that have failed constantly and that keep getting up, keep getting up, keep getting up, but changing things every single time, minor tweaks, those people are ultimately pretty successful for a reason. Like you can read autobiographies of all the greatest, like they're littered with failures. They're not failures. They made it, but you don't see their journey, right? There's these graphics on LinkedIn or all over that's like the journey looks like this, right? And it's like, it goes backwards and forwards and it's a loop-de-loop and you go through underwater and, you're on Mars or who knows. By the time, look, it's kind of like that Dunning-Kruger effect. I really like that. Kind of like these like business principles, and, these philosophies that are out there where it's like, look, once you get to a certain experience level and you've failed this many times and you've seen an industry evolve, you get to the point where you're like, look, I no longer need to be hyperbolic in about what I talk about. I now can be rooted in actual experience. Now, this is an expertise. It's actual experience, perspective, lessons, teachings, bumps and bruises, hard knocks, like that you only get by continuing, failing, moving, pivoting, doing all the things that good businesses do along their journey. So that effect where it's like, look, I'm just going to get more humble over time because maybe I don't know everything.
Yeah,
I'm not an expert.
yeah,
But I do have experience that I think is valuable and that time has shown to be valuable. in other industries, but also in this industry. So I think that's a big thing, that like the people that are talking very hyperbolic about where things are and, the sky is falling, or, there is a $500 billion industry. It's like, okay, calm down there, hotshot.
Yeah. Maybe.
You need to be humbled, right? And I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing, right? Like you need to be humbled in this industry enough to know that like you don't know everything. I don't know
Yeah.
everything. You don't know everything.
Yes.
But we do know certain things that have proven to be valuable to people that have paid us money. That seems very simple, right? It's like that is a very simplistic way to look at it. It's like people will pay for this knowledge, pay for this experience, and it's not based on the number of flight hours I have. It's not based on the equipment that I have. It's based on how many problems have I solved? How many problems do I know how to solve? That's the real answer. That's the real value. How many within these industries that you're selling to, how many real problems can you solve
Yeah.
to
And
put
I
a
think
dollar value on it?
that's it. And that is the key, not just for us teaching people, but that's the key for people selling their drone services as well, right? Like think about and I always say this as well, like people are like, oh, how much should I charge? It's like, well, what solution what problem are you solving? How much is that worth to your client? How much is that worth to your ideal customer? And if it isn't worth what you need it to be worth, and it becomes a $50 job to take some photos of a chimney pot or whatever it might be, if that's the level that you're at and you want to be at the $500 level, you have to go out and increase your experience, whether that's doing a course and learning something, getting new skills, shadowing someone who does a different type of work for 6 months so that you can go, oh, okay, and then gradually start to learn by osmosis if needs be, do a GIS course, whatever it might be, upskill yourself to the point that the value you can deliver justifies the price that you need to be charging, not want to be charging, but need to be charging to make a living at it, or whatever you want to do. And I think that's a really important message for people to take away and understand, is that it's really on you. And I really like, I'm going to have a think now about how I can turn it into a visual metaphor, your easy, hard, simple, complex thing. That's a really interesting way of thinking about it, because if there's a way of making that so it's like, okay, cool, well, where does it fit? Like it's like the hot crazy scale, right? The it's can I get away with saying that on the pod? It's, if you can find a way of making that a thing that allows you to decide where to go in the future, then it's really helpful. We talked very much so far in this episode on the show about very strategic things, right? If there was one tactical thing that you could say to anyone in the drone industry, you think about the people that we want to engage with, the people at the beginning, if there was one tactical thing that you could say to people, look, this is the one thing that is worth thinking about more than everything else, or the one way you should be looking, this is where I think the future sits. If you want to be successful, this is what you need to do. Is there anything, what would be that one thing? Putting you right on the spot now, sorry, right?
No, I love it. I
Let's see if we can
actually
bat it around.
literally, like right before I joined this podcast, I put out a post on LinkedIn. If you don't follow me on LinkedIn, please do. And it's actually this 3-question filter. This 3-question filter that like will save you months, years of unnecessary hustle. Here's the 3 things. First, do they have a $50,000 problem that drones can actually solve? And drones and drone data can actually solve. That's 1. 2, are you talking to someone with actual budget? Not just a geek that wants to, talk shop with you. 3, can you show measurable ROI in 90 days? Can you do that? If you can't answer yes to all 3, walk away. Walk away. It's not out of arrogance. It's out of discipline. Business is discipline, right? It's out of discipline. That is such a key concept that people need to understand. I just want to share that.
Yeah, that's brilliant, mate. Those 3 questions are absolutely kind of dialed in on where people need to be. And I think it's discipline. And the only other one I would like to add in is consistency. It's about being disciplined and it's about being consistent. And I suppose the consistency thing, actually, the root cause of consistency probably is discipline as well when you break it down. So I guess, yeah, you've nailed it, right? It's because it's being able to sit down, it's being able to block that, well, not being able to, it's forcing yourself, if you want to be successful, to block that time in your calendar, to cut out distractions, to switch off social media, to put your phone on do not disturb. All of those little pieces are discipline pieces that that you have to put into practice. It's not good enough just saying it or thinking it. You've got to do it, take an action one little step at a time, and move forwards. And just on the LinkedIn piece, the stuff that you put out on LinkedIn is incredible. You know, not trying to blow smoke, but it's really helpful, really interesting, particularly for you if you're listening to this podcast. I will drop Jason's links to diyouKnowDrones.com so you can check out his website. There's a YouTube channel, and you do kind of videos and podcast episodes on there as well, very regularly. Really interesting stuff, great guests as well. So please go and check out Jason on all of his channels. The links will be down in the video description if you're watching on YouTube, and in the show notes if you're listening on Spotify. And you can get more of that drone leadership, which is what I think is the position that you're in, right, when you're doing all of that kind of content.
Yes, yeah, leadership is kind of the way you look at it. Yeah, and I love that. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think that's great. Not an expert, but a leader.
Not an expert, but a leader. I love
Yeah.
it. That's it. Well, mate, listen, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We will get you back on again in the future for sure, to bat through this as the industry evolves. Because again, all of the messaging, everything we're talking about and how we're saying you should do things is constantly evolving. But that is the thing, right? Try and tap into that evolution. Try and stay on top of all the changes. Go and listen to as many people as you can, and make your own conclusions, come to your own opinions. And yeah, let's try and raise the bar together is the key, right? That's it. Amazing. Well, Jason, thanks ever so much for joining us. That's Jason Sansusi, diyouKnowDrones.com. I'm Matt Williams, the host of the Drone Business Show. It's been a pleasure. Until the next time, fly safe and blue skies.